It's good. I can't hear you right now. I can hear the music, but I can't hear you right now. I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah. There he
Haha.
is. There
I
he
was
is.
muted the entire time. These damn Yeti mics, they have this mute button that
There's like
sometimes
a
you
physical button
accidentally
on it.
there's a physical button, and I understand the utility of a physical button. It's actually pretty convenient, for a cough or background noise or whatever. But when you grab it and I move it,
You can mute it.
then I accidentally, my thumb
Yeah.
gets clumsy and I mute myself. So what I was saying was I felt bad stopping the countdown because I was really liking those beats, and I feel like I want to use some of them as like reference mixes for my own beats to mix. But speaking of reference mixes and good sounding mixes, Larryohh, what's going on?
What's up? Thanks for
This is
having
our
me, bro.
first. Yeah, well, thanks for doing this. This is our first conversation, I believe,
Yeah. Yep.
like
First time.
face to face kind of conversation. We've
Yep.
talked on Twitter and maybe like the group text with Busy Works by the producer Illuminati way back. But
Yep.
other than that, I'm still getting okay. So people are just slow now. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can hear you. Yep.
Okay, we're good. Cool, man. Well, yeah. Thanks again. I just want to let everyone know in the chat as a reminder that this is interactive. We're live. We're real live human beings. So send questions for the two of us or comments, whatever. I know Bufo has a bunch of jokes. He's just waiting to pull the trigger. Let's get right into it because we really only have an hour, so it's not very much. Yeah, here we
Yeah,
go,
let's do it.
Mike. This is the spirit of the chat. Thank you, Mike.
What up, Mike?
Uh, Larry, man, you're really known as the king of short form FL Studio tutorials, but there's really, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's any way you started off that way.
No.
How did you start off in the world of music production?
Um, I started making beats probably like late high school, early college years, but I didn't really go to college. So I would say around those years, like 19, 18, 19, 20 years old. Um, just, trying to do the normal thing, like sell beats locally. I didn't really dive into anything online for a long time. And I was in a hip hop metal band, played drums. I also did the production for that hip hop metal band, all using FL Studios. Been around for such a long time, is what I started out on. Um, but it wasn't until maybe when the band, like around the time the band stopped in 2017 ish, where I really started doing more things online. And I hadn't started the tutorials yet, but I was trying to do like the beat videos, the production videos, just trying to show off beats and production and that sort of thing. Just trying to get my name out there a little bit locally and online. And at that time, I was also running a recording studio, and just local musicians, artists, rappers, singers would come through, and that's how I just made money without working like a normal job. As I built up that credibility locally, I was able to kind of run my own studio space, book my own hours, clients and stuff. Especially when the band stopped, I was able to have that freedom to really go all in on that stuff. Because for a long time I wasn't making any money with the band, and then I started making more money with the studio, and that gave me some more freedom to do the online stuff. And then I think 2019, I tried my first post kind of tutorial thing, where all it was, and I'll never forget it too, because it was literally like the changing moment in all of my social media stuff. All I posted was a screen recording of FL Studio, no audio, no music. You could probably just go back and look 2-3 years ago now, and all it was me lining up vocals, just lining up layers of vocals, and it was just said, make sure your engineer does this. And it got like a lot of interaction, people asking me what I was doing, why I was doing it. And I was just like, yo, I think I got something. I think I got something with this. So I then decided to post my first like real tutorial, how to do, I think the second one was like reverse reverb. And then that got a lot of interaction too. And then from there, I was just like, yo, I got to keep doing this. So on the side of me booking studio clientele, working with a lot of artists, pretty much full time, like every day of the week, just getting as many clients as I possibly can. I was trying to post content throughout the week, a couple of videos here, a couple of videos there. Maybe I was trying. My goal at first was like 2 to 3 a week, and then from there, I was like, all right, I'm hitting 2 to 3 a week. Now I got to get every day. So from there, I just started posting every day.
Okay, you just answered a bunch of my questions
Yeah, I was
already.
gonna say I
Just
was
gonna
kind of
answer.
rambling, but like, feel
No,
free
that's
to stop
good.
me.
So we had a question come in, but I
Mhm.
think you already answered that. The question was, did you work a regular job while transitioning to full time music? But it sounds like your regular job was the studio
Yeah,
stuff, tracking,
I mean,
mixing, mastering.
when I was like in the band, at the beginning of the band, I was working like a normal job. I was just driving like a forklift and a clamp truck in a huge warehouse, like paper, like corrugation plant, and doing music on the side in my free time. And then I left that job and went to something part time so I could do a little bit more music. And I was just like working in a gas station part time, doing a lot of music. Like I would work at the gas station 6, 8 hours and then go straight to the studio and be there until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning every single day, pretty much. And then just building up, those hours, that
Yeah.
10,000 hours, just building it up. And then eventually I was able to quit that job and just barely squeak by with the studio clientele. And I knew if I just went all in with it, it would eventually build up to more and more over time. And it did. And then I transitioned that into social media and online stuff.
With your experience with paper corrugation, what did that teach you about music production?
Um, that I had to do it and not work a normal job because I absolutely hated it. Absolutely hated it. It taught me that I really hated working a normal job. I'll tell you
Well,
that.
paper's not going to corrugate itself. Tiger Backwoods wants to know, where does your name come from?
Um, my real name's Larry, and my last name starts with an O, so I just took it like that. I just took it from there and added 2 H's. Actually, like a couple of friends of mine just started calling me Larryohh. I don't know why. It was just kind of like a nickname, and it was just Larry O, no H's or anything. And then I just kept using it. Honestly, I added 2 H's so I could have everything on social media and not be, you know, constricted as far as Twitter name, handles, emails, and that sort of thing, and just kind of just ran with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a very Googleable name. No one
Mhm.
else has that. And was that a conscious decision? I really want to get
Mhm.
into you and marketing, because your marketing is pretty amazing and it feels so intentional, but I don't know how intentional that actually is. So, with like coming up with the name Larryohh and putting 2 H's, was that a conscious choice? Did you Google just Larryohh without the H's and say, "Oh, damn, I got to stand out more"?
I definitely Googled it way back then. I was Googling just my my regular name, just Larry with an O, no H's, and things were kind of popping up, and I was just like trying to find something that would work as a handle that I could automatically get right off the bat. And it was probably Twitter at first because that was like before anything really. Facebook and then Twitter came along and then it was Instagram, right? Kind of like in that order. So
Yeah,
I
I think
think I was
so.
trying to find the name for Twitter and I just like ended up putting the 2 H's and it wasn't taken. So I just I just kept running with it. Honestly, from there I just put it on everything. So now it was very easy to get on everything. Nobody had it. So it was kind of intentional, but in the sense of like
Yeah.
just trying to find something that I could put across the board because I think it's really important to have one name that doesn't change with underscores or anything like that across the board. It's cool to think of that in the beginning. If you don't, it's not going to make or break you, but it definitely helps in the long run.
Well, I think this is a good time to remind people that when a new social media platform comes along, it's good to right away claim your username, even if you're never going to use it, even if it becomes a platform that just disappears overnight. You never know. I know with a lot of people, they miss the boat on claiming their usernames, and then they end up with some ridiculous username, and there's no consistency across platforms. So it's harder for people to find them.
Yeah,
And like with
for
me,
sure.
people think my email address is djpayne1@gmail.com, for example. It's not. I don't know who owns that email. So
Mhm.
feel free to email them. Send them all your hottest music and your loops and samples.
I'm sure they get bombarded with emails.
I mean, that's what they get because there's no reason for them to pick that name. So
Yeah, we're like, bro, just take this.
cool.
I can't. I'm getting slammed with emails.
Yeah, no one's ever contacted me. But yeah, I mean, I've even been have you ever had this happen? I've been um what's the word? Domain parked, like where they try to
Mhm.
ransom your domain. Someone emailed me and they're like, "Hey, you got to send us $1,000 if you want
I
djpayne1.com."
have. That has kind of happened to me with
Yeah.
my catchphrase with "You get me."
How much
They
were
had.
they trying to
I
pay charge you?
At first I think he wanted like 10 grand. So he goes, "Yo, I got you getme.com. I own it." He's like, "Man, I think it'd be better off with you having it since it's your catchphrase." He's like, "Bro, he's like 10 grand, it's yours." I'm like, "Nah, I'm good, bro. I don't need that." And he's like, "Man," he's like, "How about like $1,000 bucks?" He went like from 10,000 to a
Oh,
thousand
he's a terrible negotiator.
for real, because he saw like that I had zero interest in it. I don't
Yeah.
think that that's gonna affect my business with what I do because nowadays, how many people it'd be really dope to have it. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. Like I have Larryohh.com. I have a bunch. I have ifyougetme.com, which is like the full catchphrase, but I don't need yougetme.com. It's not gonna like make or break people going to my website. All it's gonna do is look cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And because how many how many times you or anybody else in here like type in the actual address to a website now, it's more likely you're clicking a link somewhere 9 times out of 10, in my opinion. I don't really type in a physical website that much anymore. We used to, but now it's just like link here, link there, links in the bio, links in the story. It's just like clicking links now.
Yeah, like
So,
the social media identity is what's the most important.
yeah.
All that other stuff, that was back when we used to call the internet cyberspace. That's when that stuff was important, you know.
Yep.
Back
Yep.
when domain names were actually expensive.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so
not
I
worth
I definitely
10,000.
had that happen to me. Yeah, it's not worth it. I was like, yeah, I'm not even gonna pay 1,000. I don't need it. I don't need it like that. So, and then
What
I don't know what
what
happened.
happened to the domain? Because for me, when they tried that with me, like, I think a year or 2 after, I just kinda said no. I don't even think I said no, I think I just laughed. I just typed
Mhm.
"ha ha ha,"
Yeah.
and after about a year or 2, I checked the website, and I guess they were like cyber terrorists with morals because they just pointed the domain to my website, so I won in the end.
Really?
Yeah, it was life is weird. So when you started making beats initially, were you focusing more on placements and making albums, or you started around the time when the online beat licensing space was pretty strong. So were you
Mhm.
doing all of that, or what was your focus?
Um, I wasn't. I mean, the goal was to get placements. I just never had those. Excuse me. I never had those connections.
See,
I
that's
didn't know
why
how
that
to.
mute button is useful.
Yeah, I could have. Yeah, I could have hit the cough button. uh, I never had those connections, and I didn't really know how to get those industry connects. Right. So that was always the goal. Is like I wish I can get a placement. I really want to play major industry placement, but I never did. So the goal was to really just work with as many local people as possible, and that's what I did. I would link up with local artists. I had my band at that time. I was creating like side projects with other artists that I liked. Like for instance, like one person was a client and I would sell him beats and I would book him studio time and I realized like I think we really would connect on some music and really vibe well together on music that we make together. So from a client just came like an actual 50-50 project where we worked on it together. And it ended up doing really well for me at the time as an independent artist producer. Definitely like my best project that I've probably ever put out myself. And it came from, finding somebody in the studio, linking up, seeing that there was some sort of chemistry there, and just kind of worked together on an EP and pushed it. And it was in like the beginning or like right in the middle of the SoundCloud days where SoundCloud was really popping.
So here's a question to build off of that. Stay Golden wants to know how you built up your studio client base. especially, and I'm curious because this was all going down in Rhode Island, right? You don't think of Rhode
Mhm.
Island as this major hub in terms of music. I mean,
Yeah, it's
I know
definitely not a
Master H
major
went
hub.
to school there. I know Sage Francis is from there, but like, that's two
Yeah,
people.
it's definitely not a major hub. I look at Providence like a smaller Boston, and Boston's like a smaller New York, right? So we're on the tail end of cities, but it is just like those other cities, just really small. So there is a music scene here, and back when I first started out, it was pretty strong, honestly, in multiple genres. In metal, rock, where with my band, and in hip hop, I would just go to a ton of shows. So this is when there was a lot of shows happening. I would show up at a lot of different shows. Sometimes I was involved with the shows too because I had that side project I was telling you about where I worked with that artist, and we would go and get booked at a lot of local shows too, and they would find out like, oh, Larryohh, you mixed so and so, you recorded so and so. Yeah, yeah. Let me get your number. It was just kind of a word of mouth thing. People would start just knowing me because they would hear other people's music and wonder where they got it mixed. They liked the mixes. They heard that there was something good and original about them, and they were wanting to know who mixed it and who engineered it. And I would show up and show face at shows. I would get hit up online and social media and Instagram and stuff. But a lot of those clients came from being in person at shows. It really helped. It really helped. I think just they see you, they hear about you, and then or they see you online and maybe they forget to hit you up, but when they see you at a show, it's kind of different. And I know with COVID and everything, shows are starting to come back. And I think the scene is about to have like a really huge breakthrough because shows have been dead for so long. So I don't know, I could be wrong, but just if you're looking to get some clientele, whether it's artists to get on your beats, artists that you want to mix, record, and master, like I think just going out to shows is a huge part of it still. Social media presence is big. Honestly, obviously you can connect with anybody in the world, but if you want like a studio in-person clientele, I think that's the way to do it.
How did you learn to mix and engineer? Was that all self-taught, or did you have any kind of formal education, internship,
Mm.
anything like that?
I didn't have any internships, any sort of formal education. It was all self-taught, YouTube, pretty much YouTube, being around other engineers locally. I learned a lot from another engineer that I had. He just kind of hired me on. He's like, "Oh, you want to?" Because he knew that I was starting to engineer, and he was a videographer as well. So this is actually when I first quit my job, my part time job, and I said, you know what, I think I'm going to take this leap. He needed help in his studio, and he was going to pay me like $10 an hour to engineer them, to not really mix, but just engineer. So I got to learn a new DAW. I learned Logic, and I learned a lot from him just watching and sitting around his studio sessions and then watching him mix because I was already there engineering the sessions. So then when it came time to mix, I would just watch him and I would take some of those techniques. I would take what I learned on YouTube and I would just like put it all into one big one big thing and kind of use all those tricks that I've learned from other people and other people online. Really just self-taught, but not at the same time self-taught because you're learning from other
Yeah.
people, right?
Well, I was gonna say, there's really not much in terms of, well, certainly not in terms of formal education for people who engineer with FL. So you learned on multiple platforms and still ended up going. I want to talk more about that later, but you
A
learn Logic, you probably learned Pro Tools to an extent,
little bit, yeah.
but you stuck with FL for all
Mhm.
of your production and engineering.
I used Cubase for a long time when
Okay.
FL wasn't as good. So
Yeah.
I went into that studio. I learned Logic, and I had to use it in his studio. But then when I started booking more of my own clients, FL wasn't that great at recording like it is now. It's on another level now. It's totally different for recording. But then it was like I got to use something that's Windows friendly. Cubase was that, so I recorded everything into Cubase.
Yeah, some people still make beats with Cubase.
Yeah, it's good.
So at what point in your career did music become the job that paid the bills for you when you were able to finally quit the part-time uh, job at the gas station? And what do you think was really the turning point for you that set you over the edge into being a full-time career musician?
Um, I honestly, like I explained a little bit earlier, but like I think around the time that I quit the band, well, that everybody kind of quit the band, right? We went our separate ways, and I realized, like I had a kid, one kid at the time. I have three now. So it was, you get that feeling when you have a kid, like you really gotta step things up. And that was the time that I had to really step things up. So it had a lot to do with that, being in the band and leaving the band. That had a lot to do with it. And I just realized that I really just got to step it up. If I want to do music full time, if I want to do any of this full time and not work a regular job, I have to really step it up, because I felt like I knew a decent amount at the time to do music full time. And I had the engineering thing going for me, which I was already making some side money on, not much, but enough to pay some bills. And I knew that if I stepped it up, I could do pretty well with it. So it was around that time. Around that time.
What would you say the most important change you made in your life or the most important habit you developed was that allowed you to elevate your work to that point?
Um, so a couple, like a year or a year and a half into me leaving the band, probably like a year later, I really got on a strict kind of 9 to 5 schedule. Once I did that, I feel like everything changed. I don't know if it was a coincidence or if I just had everything in order or if everything was just building up to that point. But right when I changed my schedule, shortly after that, I think things really started to take off online, and I just started to see things even more clearly and a little bit differently. And I really even stepped it up even more, because along my career as a producer and a musician, and you see these little, and a lot of us do too, we see these like little bits of potential, like you get or assurance that we have that potential to go full time, to have a successful career. So along my career I kept seeing those little things, so those kept me going and going and going. But then throughout my life I just made these like little changes, and there was these things that would just motivate me to go extra hard. Having a kid was one of them. Leaving that job was another one. Leaving the band was another one. So those little things, they pushed me a little bit.
What about days where you just weren't motivated? How did you push
Um,
yourself through that?
there's not a lot, to be honest. I don't know. There's sometimes where I just feel like I don't feel like doing much. I don't know if it's not like I get depressed or I'm not gonna go anywhere with it. I always had it in my mind, like I know like I'm gonna do this. I was always pretty much all the time in that tunnel vision, and nothing was really gonna stop me. I had multiple conversations with people about how this is it. Like, there's no way I'm doing anything else. I just convinced myself that this is the only thing I'm gonna do. Something in music is gonna be what I do full time, and that could be engineering. It could be owning a studio. It could be making beats, selling beats online. Um, I was working. Sometimes I would go to shows and work the door for my friend that was a promoter. So it just in any way, I just tried to figure out something that could make me money in any way in music that I like to do, that I could stand doing. And I just really never had a lot of those days where I felt like it wasn't going to work out. I might have had some days where I just was kind of feeling lazy and didn't feel like doing anything that day, but I think that's good and healthy to have sometimes too, where you don't just don't do anything regarding music that day. Do something else that takes you out of it and come back to it.
So would you say location matters for you? Because you've managed to do a lot out of what you would yourself characterize as kind of a smaller market.
I think it definitely did years ago, right? 10, 15 years ago, location was everything. Like everything, location was everything. It definitely location definitely helped me a little bit too, because if I was in somewhere else outside of the city, half an hour, 45 minutes away from the city, I probably wouldn't have gotten the start that I did studio wise. It would have been tougher. So it definitely helped then. But right now, it depends what you want to do too. It really depends what you want to do. So if you want to own a studio and you want to have people physically coming into your studio and working with them, recording them, mixing them, producing with them, then I think location matters. But if you want to sell beats, get placements, you don't even have to rent a studio space. You could just chill in an extra room in your house, your bedroom. It really doesn't
Yeah.
matter anymore. You could be anywhere, literally anywhere in the world.
Let's talk about that quick because you just built a studio shed, right?
Yes, this is it right here. Yeah, it's a
Oh, you're
temporary.
in it.
Yep, I'm in it.
Wait, what do you mean it's temporary?
It's temporary because I'm gonna be getting a house soon, and I'm gonna probably build another shed. Honestly, so I left my studio that I was in for like 10 years. I'd always been in a studio because I was with the band. So we had a studio, and then the band decided we needed to move. We moved to another studio, and then we were in that studio for like 7 years. And then once the band stopped, I took the rent over myself, and I stayed there. And that was another motivational factor too, because I was like, yeah, I gotta make sure I pay this rent. So I need to really step things up. So there's a whole bunch of different factors. But side note, um, yeah, so now once I left that studio in April of 2021, I was like, "Yeah, I just wanna, like, build out the inside of this shed in the backyard and just kinda cook up in there because I don't need a lot of space. I don't need to pay that rent right now." And it was just kinda like, I need to change things up a little bit too because 'cause I've been in there for so long.
Okay, I see. I was under the assumption that you own the property you built the shed on.
This is the property that I built the shed on. The shed was already built in the backyard, and it just wasn't done on the inside. The studio that I had prior to this was like a rental spot that I had close to downtown in Providence, and this one is in our backyard. So
Okay.
I'm gonna now that I did this with this shed, it just like changed my outlook because a lot of people say, "Yeah, I just want to like build a studio in the house." I have 3 kids and it gets super noisy, so I like being away from the house. I don't want to even be in the basement with them running upstairs. So the next house we get, right now we're looking for a new house, and I know for a fact I'm going to be building another shed from scratch, bigger than this because this one was already built. And just doing the whole inside, it's just I don't know, it's the best decision I ever made, honestly, studio wise.
Trailer, but yeah, full of kiddies, right? Bufo. I
Mhm.
think I think that opens the floodgates on ideas, studio ideas, because they
Yeah.
they sell like tiny houses and stuff you can buy, and
Yeah, you could literally have one shipped like from Home Depot or Lowe's or any of those. And there's a lot of other companies that make full on sheds that you could probably that's almost like a tiny house, like you said. You could have it shipped and just kind of plopped in your yard. You wouldn't really have to build it, just finish the inside. And it's cool because you can feel like you're leaving the house a little bit, you know, and
yeah,
you can
especially
still
so I
avoid
don't
that
have
noise.
kids or a family or anything. I'm just totally alone all the time in the dark. But with someone who does have family, you do kind of want to get away from the noise, and especially I think this is good advice to people because I talk to a lot of people, and tell me if this was your experience where if they've quit their jobs, right, and they're treating their music career as a 9 to 5, but they're doing it all from home. Their environment doesn't provide much motivation for them because they associate home with relaxation,
Yeah.
not with work.
Yep. That's why I felt like I've always needed to go somewhere. So that's why I felt like I could have in the past done things out of my house. But I think what really kept me in that certain headspace, like you said, was having another place to go. And that's why I won't build something in my house. And I know that's not the case for a lot of people. Sometimes you don't have that choice or opportunity, right? Because maybe you don't have the space, budget, whatever. There's many factors. Big enough yard to do something like that in, or maybe you can't rent a space somewhere else. But it definitely plays a huge factor in everything mental because I always felt like I had to go somewhere else to do what I do, to work on beats, work on music, book clients, think of ideas, strategies. It's always like you said, you associate home with relaxation and you could get caught real quick and just being like really extra lazy when it's work time because you're at home. You're like, "Oh, I'm at home. I have all the time in the world to do all this stuff. I'll do it all tomorrow." You
Right.
can get into that mindset real quick.
And at home, you got snacks and TV and all types of
Yep.
things.
Yep.
See, I
Distractions.
just don't have it. I don't have cable, so I'm good. Yo, so let's talk about beat making. You just produced a track for KSO James with TM88.
Mhm.
Tell me about that. How'd you link with TM88?
Um, man, social media. I think that at some point he started just like watching my FL videos, and we linked in a DM one day and just started chatting. And from there, he was just like, "Yo, let's work. We got to work." So I was like, "All right, dope, man." I was like, "I got a ton of loops that I can send you." So I was just sending him melody loops that I created, and he got a bunch. And then, and this is probably like a year and a half. I've been talking on and off here and there just through social media, probably like a year and a half with him, just chopping it up, funny DMs maybe here and there, or just, kind of shooting it. And then he hit me up and he's like, "Yo, I got this song with KSO James with one of your loops." It's like, "Check it out." And that's pretty much how it happened. Pretty simple. It just that relationship started just through Instagram.
Yeah, that beat sounds amazing.
Thanks.
What's your take? This is a big conversation, and I don't think it has to be a negative conversation.
Mhm.
What's your take on the whole sample maker loop maker split conversation?
I've just recently saw a bunch of people talking about it. I know that it's a big topic of conversation. A lot of people, what's like the main thing? Is the main thing that people are saying loop creators should get 50, it should be always 50-50 down the middle? Is that the
Some
big
people are
topic?
saying I think what it is there are two main camps. One is let's split it down the middle 50-50. The other is let's give whoever placed the beat the majority share.
Mhm. Um, yeah, I kind of agree. And I was watching that interview with Palace. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah, I think that's what really producer grind is always
Yeah.
causing conversations,
Yeah, which
even
is good.
conversations that have been going on for yeah, but these are
Yeah.
conversations that need to happen.
Yeah, for sure. 100%, bro. I agree with Palace on that. I created the loop, yeah. I just, I sent him a bunch of loops, and he's got the other guy places it and creates just drums because their outlook is like, "Oh, who should get the higher percentage because, one person made the melody and the other person only did drums." That's their outlook on it. I don't think of that like that's the wrong way to think about it in my opinion. They didn't only do drums, they got it placed. Especially if they got it placed, they added drums. He got the artist on it. He has the relationship with that artist. He met with them in the studio. They recorded it together, or they were talking about it back and forth together, however they worked it out. So if that record gets placed, I think the higher percentage should definitely go to that person
Yeah,
versus
and
the loop
I don't
maker.
like the whole like I'm glad you brought this up. I don't like phrasing anything as somebody only doing blank. You know, you only
Yeah.
made the melody, you only made the drums, you only placed the record, you only made the beat. Because we hear, you know, as producers, when a rapper says, why do you want writer's share? You only made the beat. That triggers us. So why would we do it to
Yep.
each other? You know what I
Exactly.
mean? I
It's
think
kind of, yeah, it's hypocritical. And it happens way too much. Way too much. I see it all the time. Like, I don't I don't get that mentality of only
yeah.
creating something. Like, it takes multiple people to create something dope.
Yeah, and my no one asked me. My my personal feeling is that like if someone wants to give me 50-50 splits, if I make the sample, great, great. It's not something that I will fight you to the death on.
Mhm. Yep.
If you want it to be 30, what 30
Like 30-70.
30-70. You you can tell I didn't get a degree in anything mathematical or science related. Yeah, if it's
Me either, bro.
70-30, hey, it's 70-30, you know.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I'm not
that's
gonna
what it is.
fight. Like, I'm happy to just be making music with guys like that, you know, and just making music in general, no matter who it is. I'm just happy to be making music. Do we want to get paid? Of course we do. But for the sake of saving relationships, keeping them healthy and strong, and creating more opportunities in the long run, and just doing what everybody thinks is fair. Like, I just think that that's fair if that's the case. I'm not gonna fight anybody on that.
Yeah, I think fairness is a pretty wide range of options.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think if we're married to one option over another, then that's when we end up fighting and getting contentious. So switching gears, your drum mixes always sound amazing. I mean,
Oh, thanks.
when you only make drums, right? Um, what would you say is the key to mixing drums in FL? So not only they knock, but they still sound clean.
I know some people don't like this, but just getting good samples to begin with, like just getting samples that really just cut through. If you're making your melodies first, you have melodies first. Like what I do a lot of times is I'll just drag any old samples in most of the time. It's just to get things done really quick. Because I think a lot of us just work for speed. We just want to get the ideas out as fast as possible. Then I'll go through and maybe fish through some more kicks. I think another another big thing is kicks have that tail on them and they have that tone in them. So tuning them is a huge part of getting a clean mix. And it's not really mixing; it's a part of mixing in a sense, but making sure that your drums are tuned. So whatever your root note is, make sure that that kick is hitting that root note. It's going to sound way better. And just kind of fish through. If it doesn't sound good in that root note, maybe go up a couple of keys. And then if it doesn't sound good there, I usually go to a different sample that cuts through and sounds good right away. And that's pretty much it, man. Leveling, I don't do a whole lot of technical mixing on my drums anymore. I used to, because I used to create a lot of EDM stuff, and that entailed like a lot of mixing and a lot of effects and on everything. But the longer I do it, the more I see of how good these samples are that are coming out, and the less that you have to do to them when you just drop them in, tune them up, find something that cuts through, level it, and I'm pretty much good. I might sidechain a kick in an 808 here and there, but it's pretty much it.
What are some of your go-to drum kits? I know you have some drum kits out, so I assume
I
those
have
are
a
pretty good.
couple, yeah. I really like the one that Cody just dropped. It was like a free one. I can't remember the exact name of it. I could probably look it up. I got FL open right now. I think it's called the Essentials 2022. The
Oh,
samples
that's
in
already
there,
yeah, I got the 2021 one. I use that all the
bro.
time.
The so clean, bro. The sounds in that kit are so clean. I have a lot of my stuff open. There's a Cymatics one that is like one of my go-tos, and it's called Cobra. If I want like really punchy trap drums, I go to this one every time, and it's probably like 2 or 3 years old, and it's still just cuts through every single time. Um, if I'm looking for some lo-fi stuff, I go to the Eldre drum kit. He's got a bunch of really dope drum kits. Um, Chew, Prod by Chew, he's got a really good kit. There's a couple of there's just like some kits that I just have my go-tos, and I go through phases where I'll just use that one. I don't know if you do this too, but I'll find
Yeah,
like a
I
drum
know
kit
where
that I
you're
like,
going with this. Yeah,
and
I do that.
I'll use it for like 5 months straight, and it's only that kit for like 5 months.
And then
uh,
it's weird because like after that 5-month period, something changes and you just don't want anything to do with that
and you
kid
never touch
anymore.
it, and you never touch it again.
Yeah.
I know it, but that Cobra kit that I said I go back to every now and then. That's one kit. Sometimes you have that one that you might go back to every now and then. For the last couple of years, I've been going back and forth to that. But right now, I'm using that Cody kit in like every beat that I make. Right now, it's like every single beat that I go to, I'm using that one.
Yeah, it's easy to find everyone. Just Google CXDY. That's how he
Yep.
spells his name
I
because
think he
he's
got it.
Desi.
I think he put it in his Discord channel. I think that was how you're supposed to get it.
Okay, I don't well, send him a tweet. He's on
Yep.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Just holler at him on Twitter. He's usually responsive. But there's probably some kind of tweet about it already,
Yeah,
knowing
I'm sure.
knowing his audience.
Yeah, because it's fairly new, maybe like a month.
Okay, so you said something interesting, and this is the advice that I give people a lot too. And when I hear a terrible drum mix, it's usually just because the sounds aren't good.
Mm,
And you said people don't want to hear that, or people don't like hearing that because people want a magic bullet to transform a bad drum mix into a good drum mix.
mhm.
Right now, you teach mixing, you teach drum programming, you teach composition. Here's something that you struggle with. You struggle with teaching sound selection.
Yeah,
It's
I
hard
think
to teach.
everybody does.
Well,
That's the
how
hardest
do we
thing, bro.
teach?
I was gonna
Yeah,
say
how
that.
do
I was gonna like cut you off, but your question is still going in that direction because
Yeah.
I think why people get so mad, or not that they get mad, but they're like, it's just not what they want to hear, is because it's not a magic bullet. It's not like it's something that you have to be trained in over the years. And it's something that is also subjective because not everybody is going to think one sound is good. Not everybody is going to think the same sound is good, is what I'm saying. Same sample. Everybody's going to have a different opinion. You're going to choose one kick, another producer is going to choose another kick, snares, claps, etc. So it's super subjective, which is why it's hard to teach, and it takes a long time to train your ear. Another reason why they don't like that answer, because it takes a long time to train. And what I try to tell people, and I try to teach sound selection, is study, like really hone in and really study songs that you like, that you listen to on a daily basis. Don't just listen to them, break them down, try to reverse engineer them. Why did that producer choose that kick, that snare? Figure out why, like really dive into it and try to figure out why they used that drum kit or that kick or that hi-hat, that 808. What about that beat? What about those melodies made them go in that direction of those samples?
Sorry about that. Some people think having a dog is demanding, and I have a cat, and she's just making a ton of noise. I have to keep muting myself,
Oh, it's all good.
so I had to open the door for her. So let's jump right into the FL Studio engineering rabbit hole. So you record, you track, you engineer, and you vocal produce in FL Studio, right? Everything.
Yeah, everything. Now, yeah. I think I forgot what year it was, but once FL started getting a little bit better with the actual tracking side of things, I just left Cubase completely. I was doing what I was doing for a long time was recording in Cubase and then mixing everything in FL because I was so used to the workflow, and I can get really clean mixes in FL Studio with just bringing in the stems. Especially if I made the beat, I would just bring the stems into my beat session. Uh, but yeah, now for the last maybe 5, 6 years or so, 7 years, strictly FL Studio recording, tracking, mixing, mastering.
Someone asked earlier, and I'm sorry that I don't remember their name. They asked if you could add on any one feature, any recording feature to FL, what would it be?
Um, I think they just added it. Honestly, it was one of my biggest like question marks as far as why they never did it. But now they've done it where when you, just like Pro Tools or Cubase, you can record in a track that's in the playlist and it will lock it into that, and it also coincide with the mixer track. So now everything can line up and lock in accordingly. Whereas what you put before in the playlist, you could just hit record, and honestly, it would almost seem like it would kind of just throw that audio clip anywhere in the playlist. Now it has a specific area that it's going to record to, and it has the arm and I believe like the mute and solo buttons within that little block inside the playlist. So they added just recently, a few weeks ago, a ton of recording features. And that was like the main one. That was something that I've been wanting for the last 15 years that every other recording DAW had, that FL just never did.
Mm,
And
okay.
now the
Now
workflow
it's
is on another
becoming clear
level.
to me.
Yeah.
So Johnson is saying comping, but can't you comp in FL?
Yeah, you can comp easily. Yeah. I mean, that's just a matter of recording multiple takes, choosing the best parts, and
But can
bringing
is
the.
it's easy to just slide one from another track, right? Or
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, you
use
could just
FL,
like
so this is
record underneath. You could also loop record. And when you loop record, it's gonna mute the previous take. And then you can kind of just keep taking recording takes and then pull them down and then just slice and dice and comp the best parts.
yeah, because Ableton, I don't think Ableton presented itself initially as a recording DAW. It was really music production
Mhm.
and live, but they always had those same kind of transport controls, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think so too. Okay, well, okay, shout out to F. She's sitting in her bed making sounds. I think she just wants to be on the live stream.
She's yelling
Why
at
is
you.
there yeah, why is there so much resistance to the FL Studio recording and engineering movement?
Yeah, I don't know. You got me. I think,
Because there's a lot, right? Like
yeah,
I've heard rumors even that FL Studio adds noise or certain sounds to
they're crazy. They're all
like their
crazy.
wave processing is different, the signal processing is
It's
different.
all yeah. I always knew that that was false. But if you want to reference somebody that really went into it, go, and I don't know where exactly you'd find it, but I know I've seen the video multiple times from Decap where he literally goes in and he goes into the science of things. See, I'm not that good or smart with this stuff, but Decap is he's up there with that, and he is a beast, and he explained it so well. So if anybody has any questions about the engines sounding different between DAWs, go watch and look up that video from Decap because he explains it so perfectly. And it's the one thing that you might hear different is the fact that FL Studio adds a limiter as a default into the mixer, so it's getting limited. Whereas an Ableton or a Logic, they're not adding a limiter on your master track as default. But what you can do is you can go into FL Studio settings and make a new default without the limiter, and then every mix is going to be the same as anybody else's DAW. So it's really that's what it comes down to. But the as far as the engine goes, it's not a thing.
That makes sense because I've always perceived FL Studio producers as having way louder beats, but I think also that's because just like that the AW is set up
Yeah,
with a whole bunch of um, limiters and saturators and
yeah,
just stock plugins to make everything as loud as possible. So if it's there,
yeah.
they're
And
gonna
I think
use it.
that in FL Studio, there's so many different ways to gain.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
all these different ways to turn things up. The same thing. So within the channel rack, you could turn that volume knob up. Then you can go into the sampler of that sound, and you can there's another volume knob, another gain in there that you could turn up. And then once it gets to the mixer, you can put something else on it, a soft clipper or a limiter. So there's all these different ways to make things louder or be perceived as louder in FL.
yeah. Because I saw a video of yours where you were creating a harmony with FL, and it looks like they have a stock plugin that's basically like Melodyne.
Yeah, New Tone. Probably one of the most underrated plugins that FL has. It's essentially Melodyne, and I want to say that it's been around just as long as Melodyne, if not longer, because it's been in FL Studio as long as I can remember. I don't know how long Melodyne's been around for, but I think a long time. And it's essentially that with all the settings. So I mean, if you have FL, unless you really are used to Melodyne, there's no need to go out and grab it because New Tone is up there with it. It's at that level. And I've created harmonies from scratch with artists that maybe really couldn't sing those harmonies, or it was kind of a post-production type of thing where it was more cool that it sounded fake, creating harmonies from scratch. But yeah, I tune all my vocals. If somebody wants like a manual tune and wants that organic feel, I'll go straight to New Tone and tune their vocals. I'll even do it even if they want the auto tune and maybe their notes are far off and it's making the auto tune jump all over the place. I'll go in and manually tune it with New Tone before it hits auto tune.
And New Tone is just native to FL. It's
And
just
it's
the same
native,
stuff.
yeah.
That's
You
crazy.
might need one of the higher packages. I have like the producer bundle, like the highest one, but I think, when they limit you plugins. So it might be like one of the next steps up.
Okay. Here's what I find interesting about you. So you make tons of content, free content. It's hard for me to pin down what your revenue model is just by looking at your branding. With other producers, I know what it is. They're selling
Mhm.
beats, they're selling courses, they're on a tour, there's something. I don't ever feel like you're selling anything. How do you I'm going to ask you a very direct question. How
Yeah,
do you make money in the music business? What's at the center of your revenue model?
I can answer it. There's a bunch of different ways, but the majority of it right now, it comes from sponsored content. But like you said, you don't feel like I'm selling anything, and that's my biggest goal. That's my biggest most important thing that I've always had in my head and a part of my business model is Even if I'm selling something, it needs to, the piece of content that is selling this thing, whatever the product is, somebody else's plugin, sample pack, whatever it is, the video still needs to help. And do I have the occasional post where it's just like, hey, go grab this or download this for free or whatever? Yeah, I might have that. But my goal is always every single day to post something, whether I'm selling, whether I'm trying to get some email leads or whatever it is, to give back. So that way people never feel like they're just being taken advantage of and being sold to constantly. I don't like that. I don't like being on the other end of that, and I don't want to be on this end of it doing it to somebody else, because I know how that feels, and I just don't like it. And that's not why I got into this. It's not why I got into teaching on social media. I didn't say, oh, I'm going to do this because I know I'm going to be able to get sponsored content, you know.
Do you
I just
remember what
like
your
helping.
first piece of sponsored content was or what that offer was
Ah,
like?
damn, I really don't. I wish I could right now, but I one of the first ones was probably, oh man, I don't know. It could have been Slate Digital or Cymatics at the very, very beginning. Those were like the first companies that started reaching out. I would never reach out either, because I learned the hard way years ago trying to reach out to just other producers or artists to work with just through social media, that doesn't work, especially when you have really nothing to gain, when they have nothing to gain off of you. So I didn't reach out to anybody until I started getting reached out to, where I was at a point where I knew maybe, hey, some people might want this type of video and they just really don't know about me yet. So I can maybe now put it in front of them and see if that would work.
So for you, it was a lot of, I guess, what they call paying it forward, putting out a lot of content that was helpful, and then allowing all of that to come back to you in the form of companies offering money for
Yeah.
these kind of partnership deals and
Hmm.
producers wanting to, because you've collaborated with a lot of other producers too. For example, I think you collaborated with Curtis King on pretty big projects, which I think was a whole
Yeah.
course with
Yeah.
Curtis
We did
King.
a course. Yeah. We did a course together in, like, right at the beginning of the pandemic, pretty much like in the middle of it, which was kind of scary too, because we had planned this whole thing for so long. And again, I just met him through social media. We connected and we were just chopping it up here and there. And we did a couple of collabs where we would drop some free content and just collab on the free content with no real end goals in mind, just kind of just collaborating and working together. We just really connected and vibed. And we put out that course. It was like an FL Studio advanced course. And that was my first ever production course that I've ever released. And I knew that I was getting towards that because of the content that I was creating. I knew that I wanted to get into the course lane. And it was cool that somebody like Curtis King just kind of helped me and basically like held my hand and showed me how to do it, because he doing that for a while. He had been releasing that type of content and products for a while. And it was something that
I'm,
my audience really wanted from me too. They were asking for things like that.
I'm guessing it did well given the timing, right?
It did do well. We had initially, like, because the pandemic like really hit hard and people were really freaking out at that time, we drastically dropped the price. We were going to do it and we were like, we can't, we got to put this out because we just put so much work. And I feel if we sit on it, it's just, so if it flops, it flops. I just want it to be out there. And, we did this and we put the work into it. Let's really drop the price, because we know how people are hurting right now. And if people can afford it, they can afford it and they can grab it. Great. If not, it's just, it'll be there. This is one that we didn't like close down or anything like that. And we just kind of left it up and running. But yeah, it did pretty well. I mean, for me, I had never
Mm.
put anything out like that. I hadn't even sold any of my own products yet at that point. That was probably the first thing that I sold.
So someone's asking about an agreement with Superstar O. Did you have a partnership with him?
Was it, I guess it was some sort of agreement with Superstar O. Free tutorial for fun. I think if there might be referring to the subscription plan that he has. Is that what they're talking about?
I think so. They mentioned that
Oh,
earlier.
yeah. So yeah, he hit me up and was just like, "Hey man, um, I'm doing this project, this like big subscription thing, and I want to see if you want to contribute a video. Maybe you do like contribute a video once a month or something like that." So yeah, we had an agreement for that.
Yeah. So what's your advice then? Because a lot of producers want to network, they want to collab. And you see it all the time where, a producer who just started out, who maybe hasn't built their value in the production space yet, is looking to collaborate with a Curtis King or a Larryohh or a TM88 or, Superstar or whoever. But all of these producers that they want to collaborate with have been doing it for longer. They have huge followings. They have a lot of credibility because they're just, good people and they've provided a lot of value. What's your advice to producers who want to start networking? How do they come to the table and with something that allows them to
Mm.
even start that conversation?
I mean, I think just to be like straight up, you have to have something that you can provide and bring to the table as well. It can't be one sided. So if you're going and you want to work with a bigger producer, what's the reason you want to work with that bigger producer? 9 times out of 10, it's because they want to gain some of their fans, some of their audience in some way, shape, or form. So if you can bring that to the table as well, where you've grinded it out for years and you've put in the work to give that free value back, and you've gained an audience, or just value in general, like not necessarily like free value, but like just value in general, and you've put good vibes out there and you show up. And what I mean by show up is taking the time to leave a genuine comment, because we're in the social media world, these things mean a lot, right? Leaving sharing somebody's content for no reason at all, being genuine about things, not gatekeeping. Even if you don't, if you have like somewhat of an audience and you feel like, man, what did he do for me, I'm not going to share his stuff. That's the mentality. Just people notice those things, and being genuine and just like, I really like this piece of content this person put up, I'm going to share it with my audience and just show my appreciation for that, and just kind of showing up in that sense in a live stream, showing up, spending time, chilling in live streams. I see the same people that are in this live stream right now. I've seen them all the time. Like that's great. It's recognition, it's branding, you know? Uh and that's going to lead to something in one way, shape, or form. In some way, shape, or form, it's going to lead to something good. It's going to lead to a collab. It's going to lead to a relationship that builds. And I'm not necessarily saying that you have to have a huge audience and a huge number of followers, but just being genuine, being cool, showing up, networking, sharing. It's all that stuff. It's all providing value. It's a lot of different things all piled into one.
Okay, I have a ton more questions. We're gonna have to schedule a part two if you're cool with that.
Yeah, I'd be down for a part two for sure.
Okay, that was a verbal commitment. You see how I do this? I always do this because I have, yeah, I have tons of questions.
Yeah.
But we have 2 minutes left. What are you excited about in 2022? Was going down with the Larryohh brand?
Um, I'm really excited to be working on courses, but with other producers. So now, through relationships that I've had over the years, I've I'm in a position right now that I just actually just came back from Atlanta filming a course with S1 with the homies in Cymatics. So I started that relationship with Cymatics years ago, and it just kind of worked its way into like a partnership right now. So I'm really excited about that. I partnered up with the guys in Cymatics, and I'm bringing relationships to the table to work together with them, and they're doing the same thing. I met S1, flew down to Atlanta, filmed this huge production course. Um, it's going to be crazy. We're going to be doing that, a whole bunch of that. Hopefully we keep doing courses like this um, in the next year to come. I think we planned a couple more already. They're in the works, but this one's probably going to be dropping sometime in March. We're just working on getting everything edited, but it's all done. And that was a really dope process. I really like doing that kind of stuff. I like managing stuff. And it's kind of cool to step back and to not have to do it myself, and just kind of work on the creative stuff or based around it, because I've done it for a while now, and I've done courses and I've outlined them, and I don't know, it's a lot of fun. So I'm really excited about that. I'll going to be dropping some of my own courses over the course of this year. Just excited about creating more content and working with producers.
All right, what's the best way for everyone to follow you and stay abreast on all things Larryohh?
Uh, just follow me at Larryohh with 2 H's on everything. I'm on everything. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, you name it.
All right, so next time we talk, that's what I want to do a deep dive into, just social media strategy overall, because I know YouTube is kind of new to you, TikTok
Mhm.
isn't, so it's interesting. It will be interesting to hear your perspective on one platform that you're not quite in love with yet, and one
Yeah.
that you've really
And one
utilized,
that I really, really need to dive into, honestly.
which is YouTube, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Well,
I'm
the
on there,
more
and that's
you
another
know, the less
conversation.
you know.
Yeah, man, it's tough, and it's time consuming. That's one of the main reasons why I haven't really gone all in.
Yeah, it is. So we're going to talk about that. Appreciate everyone in the chat. Shout out to all the Larryohh fans. There are quite a few of them. Larry, man, I appreciate you. I'll DM you. We'll figure out the part two, because now we
Yeah,
got to
for
give
sure,
the
man.
people what they want. I'll be back
I'm
same
down
time,
for it.
same place next week. Let me see who's here next week. I should know these things. Oh shit, it's Ocean. Prod by Ocean
Ocean's
will
good
be
people.
here. Yeah, and like now I feel like I'm tapping into the elite right now, because I have Larryohh, I've had Eldre on here.
I watched
I've
that one. That was
had
good.
Ed Talenti was on here.
Good
Like
dude.
who else is on that? I've definitely had Curtis King on here. Who am I missing? Who else is a part of that? There are some people that I just don't know, like
Jay
trying to
Cactus. Look into Jay Cactus if you don't know
Jay
about him.
Cactus, I know. I'm gonna reach out to him. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We've worked on things, but not this yet. So thank you. A matter of fact, I'm gonna type that right now.
Yeah, he's good. He's a good guy too. We've collabed on a bunch of different things in the past. He's a good guy, and he's really talented. He's building a great YouTube channel too.
Good. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. So yeah, Ocean is next. Yeah. So like, for example, good suggestion. I have never spoken to him before, so I have a lot of work to do. But I'm chipping away at the gates of the elite.
Yeah,
Once again, I appreciate you. Have a great day, everyone. Catch you next
you too, man.
time. If you
Thanks
were
so much
late,
for having me, man. I appreciate it.
oh yeah, no, thanks for being on here. And anyone who was late, don't worry, this is all archived. It'll be on all of BeatStars video platforms, including Twitch and YouTube, and then it'll be on mine in a couple of weeks, my YouTube channel. Cool, man. Have a good weekend. Peace, everyone.
Later. Thanks, guys.